Plain and simple, I fell in love with an American and I moved here to be with him. So the majority of my family lives in Canada, spread out through the province of Quebec and the province of Ontario. My parents and my brother live in Montreal, which is where I grew up, and we keep in touch via text message and phone calls and Skype every now and again, mostly with my brother. My parents are just learning how to use Skype. Yeah, so I actually spent 9 summers working at an American summer camp for the simple reason that they paid a lot better than Canadian summer camps. So I was very familiar with the United States, specifically with the Northeast, and I had a lot of American friends from having worked at camp for so long. So I did visits over the course of the year to their college campuses, to their hometowns, so I really got to know the United States pretty well. So when I initially moved to the United States, I applied for a work visa, and working at a synagogue, I was able to applying to work for a synagogue, I was able to get a religious work visa, which is an R1, and that gave me 3 years worth of work time here in the States legally. And so I just kept on renewing that for a couple years thereafter, and only recently have I applied and been accepted for a green card, which is it gives me permanent residency as my status. So I no longer am bound to work for a religious organization. I can now work wherever I want in the United States. I cannot vote yet because I'm not a citizen. That will take a few more years. And I was able to get the green card because I married an American, so that's what made me eligible. I mean, it's a little bit like comparing apples and oranges. I grew up in Montreal, and I grew up Jewish, and I actually work in a Jewish setting now, and I live in an area that's very Jewish, but the demographics in terms of, I think, average family income is significantly different in the area that I live and work compared to where I grew up. So I feel like the teens and the kids that I work with here have so much more in terms of opportunity and life experience, travel programs and study abroad programs and things like that compared to what I had growing up, and also physical things, you know, technology and shoes and fashion and that kind of stuff. So I feel like that's very different. And growing up, because I lived in the province of Quebec, my family spoke English at home, but for school we were required to attend schools where you walk in and your first day is completely in French, so that the kids pick up the language and they become bilingual just through their education. So kindergarten through 3rd grade is completely in French. 4th grade through 6th is a split, so half your days in English, half your days in French, and then once you get to high school, so half your courses are in French and half are in English. So I grew up in a setting where everybody was bilingual just because that's the education that we got. So I think that's sort of a major difference here. I know kids can take a second language in high school, but they don't have the same fluency as we were able to develop at home.
Do you regret any of your decisions to move to America?
No. I'm a little bit nervous now because my husband and I are starting a family, and when I think back to the services that we had in Canada in terms of healthcare and education, it seems like it's a lot more readily available than here in the United States and a lot less expensive. So the thought of saving for college tuition for one child, let alone 2 children, is a little bit anxiety provoking. 100%, I would want them to grow up in a bilingual setting the way that I did. I do feel, however, that there's greater opportunity here in the United States, depending on what area, what career you want to pursue. So I guess it depends on what your personal interests are. I think that, I don't know, I kind of wish we could create a new country that had a little bit from column A and a little bit from column B. Neither one is bad. Both are great. Both are really, really great options. But I think that as I grow up and as I start a family, there are definitely things from Canada that I'm going to miss significantly, having made the choice to live here and create a life in America. Okay, so everything that I thought America would be like, America has lived up to those expectations. People in Canada think that America is the country of bigger, better, more, and 100% across the board, that's the reality here. So, for instance, even something like Thanksgiving. This is a holiday that we celebrate in Canada, granted on a different day from the day that you celebrate here in America, but ours is a more low-key, we do turkey, but it's about family gathering together, and it's about the harvest and giving thanks. When we see American TV ads for things like Black Friday sales, the doors opening at 3 a.m. In Canada, we cannot believe it. But having moved here and having seen the lineups myself, it just, I don't know, it reinforces for me that all of our, the preconceived notions that Canadians have about Americans, 100% true. Bigger, better, more. So, I grew up in a very safe neighborhood. Of course, Canada is a huge country, and there's a lot of diversity in Canada. There's a lot of different areas, so I can't speak for the entire country. All I can speak of is my experience. I grew up in a house where we locked the front door, but the garage door was unlocked. And I think that the majority of people in my neighborhood probably had a similar situation. The back door was unlocked or whatever. I think that there is a major difference between Canada and America in terms of the perceived safety. So in Canada, because everybody pays, I think it's close to 40% of their 40% of their income goes to taxes, so that everybody is covered for healthcare and everybody is covered for education. So no matter what kind of job you hold, your child is able to attend post-secondary education pretty much free of charge. There's this safety net that we have in the country where everybody's protected and everybody's cared for, Medicare and education. So I feel like between the United States and America, that's a big difference. In the States, you're looking out for yourself. You're looking out for number one. You always got to sort of watch over your shoulder and plan for the future and protect yourself. And in Canada, we all sort of look out for each other. And that's the social systems that we've set up. I think that Canada's commitment to the environment and protecting the land is something that I'd like to see here in more of here in America. I think that you have really, really beautiful landscape here, and when it comes to things like digging for oil, digging pipelines, sometimes the commercial or the financial aspect, takes center stage here in the United States over the environmental impact that it could have. So I'd like to see more of that here in the United States. In Canada, I'd love to see more educational institutions open up that have as much drive as they do here in the United States. I feel like competition really drives education here, and it pushes you to a new level in terms of medical research, and I guess anything having to do with the sciences, engineering. We do a lot of great stuff in Canada. A lot of aerospace technology comes out of Canada, but there could definitely be more. So those are two things that seem obvious to me. So as a native English speaker, it was relatively easy. I'm an educated person. English is my first language. I'm able to read the forms. I'm able to navigate the government's website and figure out what exact pieces I need to show up at an interview for whatever part I'm at in the immigration process. For somebody who is not an English speaker, or somebody who's not tech savvy, who's maybe coming from a country that there's not a computer in every household, I can see how it's very difficult, a lot of red tape, and very stressful. So for me personally, it was relatively simple and easy, but I can see how that's not the case for the majority of immigrants to this country.